The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count presented by BetMGM. It's Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. This is a show for college football fans that understand we're all a little bit the same in how we process this part of the year. Maybe you realize it, maybe you don't, but whenever that red Starbucks cup starts getting served at your local Starbucks, whenever the weather starts getting a little bit crisper, maybe some snow on the ground, wherever you're listening to or watching this show from, whenever those things are happening, heck, Chick-fil-A has the seasonal milkshake out and about here pretty soon. That means that big things are happening in the world of college football. We got pseudo playoff games this weekend. Teams with playoff dreams still intact. Are they going to end this weekend? We'll break it down here in a matter of moments. College football playoff rankings. We're getting a new version of those tonight, which we will react to in real time. The college football playoff itself right around the corner. The transfer portal. They moved the window back, but it's still not that far away, opening up here in January. So with that being said, we're going to savor every single part of this regular season. We're going to enjoy the heck out of this season, starting with a Prediction Tuesday for your Week 12. All right, so go ahead and lock in. Enjoy this. I know we got a lot going on. Whatever you have going, it can wait for a good hour or so as we break down these games. We'll talk about why I believe Texas A&M should be number 2 in tonight's rankings, and we'll also take a quick look at some of the conference title races across the board here. The SEC and the Big Ten feel a little bit more cut and dry. The Big 12, I'll say this quietly so it doesn't jinx it, feels sort of cut and dry right now with the teams in the mix. And then the ACC, go ahead and break out your calculator and quadratic formula because that who's going to come out of the ACC is anyone's guess. But glad to have you all a part of this. Make sure you are subscribed. We will start, as we always do, for this Prediction Tuesday with the BetMGM game of the week, baby. Oklahoma going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The Crimson Tide, a 7-point favorite at the crib, 3:30 Eastern, ABC, Oklahoma. Remember that whole spiel I gave you a matter of seconds ago, talking about pseudo-playoff games and teams with playoff dreams intact? That is Oklahoma in this spot. You got 2 losses. A third doesn't dash your dreams, but it definitely makes you feel a little bit more uncomfortable about where you would stand on Selection Sunday. Because 9-3 Oklahoma still has a case, but listen, 10-2 may not get you in this year, even if you're not Oklahoma. So 9-3 you don't feel great about. Burn the boats. Whatever you got to do, you do it this weekend, brother. We'll talk about the John Mateer game plan, but I think you got to let him cook a little bit in the run game. More on that in a moment. Alabama, every single week, I feel like I say the same thing about Alabama. Hey, tricky spot for Bama. Hey, they're playing a desperate opponent. Hey, LSU, they're going to be frisky, no head coach. Like, same deal for Alabama. Like, you got to meet the moment yet again. You got a target on your head. That's what comes with being Alabama. That's also what comes with this spot with Oklahoma coming to play you. Now, for Oklahoma, I fully believe this will be the most aggressive game plan you see from Ben Arbuckle all year long. Why? Because what I just said, you got to have it in the spot, baby. You have got to have it. I want to rewind the clock a little bit to what we said after Oklahoma beat Michigan in Week 2 of the college football season. We said John Mateer is a dog. John Mateer is awesome running the football. However, somebody else has got to be able to run the football besides John Mateer. Now, in that same breath, we said, now there's going to be certain points, Oklahoma, where I'm okay with having the 15 to 20 carry John Mateer game. Now, at that point, we didn't know that John Mateer would have had surgery on his hand. Shout out Dr. Shin. But this is going to be the John Mateer Gladiator game. Like, I'd like to have Xavier Robinson going on the ground. I'd like to have another running back go over 100 yards for the 4th game in a row here for the Sooners. But if that doesn't happen, I'm okay with it. John Mateer's got to run the football in this spot. Absolutely have to. You're not saving him for anything. This is the John Mateer go out on your shield kind of game here. If it's 15 carries, if you got to have him throw it 30 times, whatever you need from John Mateer in this spot, you go ahead and do that, all right? Now, I think in that same breath, if you're going to run the football well, Oklahoma, because Bama hasn't been all that great against the run this year, just so we're all on the same page, you got to have someone, whether it's your tight end Kanik or whether it's Deion Burks, someone has to go in and create explosives in this game.
because running the football against Alabama would be awesome. However, I think you're going to have to plan to match scores with Ty Simpson. More on what the Oklahoma defense has to do here in a second. But if you're walking in there thinking that 24 points is going to be enough to get it done, I think you got another thing coming. I think you're going to have to be able to score with Bama. So I say all that, going back to the explosive plays here. When you run the football, that's only part of the solution here. It's a great step towards the ultimate solution, which is scoring more than Bama. But if you can run the football, then your guys on the perimeter, what I just mentioned, Deion Burks, Jaron Kanik, fill in the blank with whatever skill player you want to fill in there, you got to go in. I mentioned Deion Burks because he had over 100 yards against Michigan, and we were all like, okay, hey, here we go. This is the guy we signed up for when we saw him pop off in that spring game when he first got to Norman. This is the guy we signed up for when he transferred from Purdue, and hasn't been the same level of production since then. Now, some of that obviously you pin on John Mateer and his health and the way that Oklahoma's had to be a little bit different offensively with how John Mateer has been limited physically. But as he gets more healthy, you got to, just what I said, burn the boats in this spot. Somebody's got to go in deep, create explosives, when that money's on the table for Alabama, having trying to stack the box a little bit more because John Mateer's getting going and Robinson's getting going. When that's on the table for you, you got to cash in. So somebody's got to go do that and make this thing interesting in Tuscaloosa. Now, I think for Oklahoma defensively, I think they're going to force the issue a little bit here with a Ty Simpson. Go back to last week. LSU's playing Alabama, and it wasn't like LSU did anything offensively to really force the issue against Alabama. Like 20 points got it done. But you could see the pressure from LSU get home a little bit against Ty Simpson. I mean, force a fumble did Harold Perkins to make that thing interesting a little bit in the second half for the old Crimson Tide. I think the ingredients that LSU had, Oklahoma has that and then some with how they rush the passer. Now, something to monitor here. As we're recording this, there's nothing definitive on our Mason Thomas, the freak show edge defender for Oklahoma, who would be a problem if he's able to play against Alabama. But you have to find some way to heat up Ty Simpson and force him off his spot. I think you're actually going to do that. So if you do that, what happens next is where this whole thing gets interesting. Because I mentioned LSU, they applied pressure, did a good job against Bama doing that. However, it didn't matter because Ty Simpson proved to the entire country, yet again, like, hey, I can do things out of structure in this offense. Like, I'm not going to be Johnny Manziel necessarily and reverse field, make you miss 3 or 4 times, and then throw a blindfold pass downfield. However, though, if you want to bring something off the edge, I can break contain, reset, and find Jeremy Bernard downfield. Hey, I can step up in the pocket, keep my eyes downfield, and throw a strike to Ryan Williams. What happens in those spots where an Oklahoma does apply pressure is going to, I think, go a long way in deciding the outcome of this game. So the same breath of Ty Simpson and those extended plays and him ad-libbing, I think it's going to be just as interesting to watch the matchup on the back end. Oklahoma secondary keeping track of these Bama wide receivers. Now, there's 2 parts of that. One is just what I said, the ad-lib stuff. Ty Simpson, play breaks down. It's essentially some backyard football going on. If you're applying pressure, usually you have less numbers on the back end to keep track of your receivers, so you got to be sticky in coverage against day one. Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, Isaiah Horton, just the whole cast of characters. Lottie Brooks, like there's a lot of guys to keep track of for Alabama. Doing that at an effective level would, at the very least, create neutral plays against Alabama, which is ideal. Maybe in a perfect world, create some negative plays here. That's how Oklahoma goes a long way in winning this football game. Alabama is top 5 in America in turnover margin. They don't really give it up. Ty Simpson's thrown 1 interception all year long. So if you can be disruptive in that way and force Bama to do some things they haven't really done this year, maybe you see a 2 interception from Ty Simpson. Maybe that's kind of the way that you go if you're Oklahoma. You kind of heat them up in that way. That would be the path to victory in my mind if you're talking about Oklahoma finding a way to win this game. So that's the first part of this, the ad-lib stuff. But also I say keeping track of the wide receivers. If you're Oklahoma, you got to keep tabs on where they line up with Jeremy Bernard. They'll put him in the backfield, put him in the slot, put him out wide. Like, you have to make sure that you're not in a disadvantageous position defensively with the matchup you get with number 5. Because let's be real, he's their best player, not named Ty Simpson. He's their best playmaker. He's the offensive weapon that if you have a bad day at the office lining up against him, you're going to lose this football game with Oklahoma. And you'll probably have that spread covered if you're Alabama, just to keep it a buck here. So going back to pressure with Ty Simpson, I would be not the most surprised in the world because it's not something that Bama has really leaned on too much, but just keep an eye on this. How quickly does Ryan Grubb try to get the football out of Ty Simpson's hands? They have some quick game baked in there, but if you look at what Alabama's done throughout the course of this season, like They want to push the ball downfield. They want to have those longer developing pass plays where Ryan Williams runs by you or any number of receivers that Alabama has runs by you. I don't know if you can do that against Oklahoma, but I do think that there's a blueprint out there to attack this Oklahoma defense with the quick game. It's called Ole Miss. Like, does Ty Simpson handle the pressure the way that Trinidad Chambliss handled it with Oklahoma trying to get after him, or does he handle it the way that Joey Aguilar handled it? And he gets a little bit flustered, takes a 50-50 shot downfield. I mean, let's be real here. Oklahoma's got some good defensive backs that will at the very least compete. That's something to monitor here when it comes to how Alabama is approaching the pressure with Oklahoma. So the quick game is something to watch here. Alabama, I think you have to do something to make that front seven of Oklahoma pay attention, if that makes sense. Like, if you can just rush the passer all day long, if you're Brent Venables and co., it's going to be a tricky day at the office for a one Ty Simpson. Not that he can't win that way, because he's proven he can. I mean, Alabama ran the ball for like 50 yards against LSU, and it didn't matter. But I think Oklahoma and how good their defense is, you got to give them something to mellow out. Okay, and I think that something is Daniel Hill. 240-plus pounds, run the ball downhill, and you got to commit to it here too. It can't just be we try it here and there and see how we feel about it. You got to commit to handing the football to big number 4 and let him lean on that Oklahoma defense. If you can do that, guess what? Those blitz packages for Oklahoma become a touch less exotic. Guess what? Those throws downfield, all of a sudden you got a little bit more real estate to push the ball if you're Ty Simpson. So the face slapper would be Daniel Hill, probably 15-plus carries. Gets a little bit of juice in the second half. Again, some gash plays happen, and then Oklahoma is in a point where you have to answer scores, but you have to answer scores after extended drives from Bama. Not a great way to live when you have less time on the clock and you're trying to get the run game going in your own right if you're Oklahoma, because they're not going to just drop back and throw the ball over your head. They have to have something to set it up as well, do the Sooners. So here's my prediction in this game. I would not put it past John Mateer and co. to just find a way. And it might be a thing where we walk in here on Saturday and say, listen, or on Sunday rather, and say, listen, Oklahoma, it didn't make sense from a personnel perspective. They didn't have the matchups on the perimeter we thought that they would. But you know what? John Mateer plays for Oklahoma, and he just willed this team to a win. I think that's very, very possible, especially what we just saw them do in Neyland Stadium against Tennessee. But that game against Tennessee, to me, there were multiple points where I was like, hey, I think Tennessee might blow this game wide open. The spacing that Tennessee was able to create, the plays in the pass game that Tennessee had against Oklahoma. If Joey Aguilar processes that defense a little bit more effectively, I think there's some more meat on the bone for them there. If it comes down to processing the defense, it's Ty Simpson by a mile. It is. So with that being the case, I think that Alabama, once again, proves they're the most present team in college football. Maybe it's not a definitive Bama win where they blow them out by 30. That'd be surprising to me, honestly. But I do think that at the end of the day, Alabama is able to take advantage of the pressure from Oklahoma, and I don't think Oklahoma can keep pace in that respect. So I'll take Alabama to win. I'll take Alabama to cover. I think final score, Alabama 31, Oklahoma 23. Bama gets it done at the crib in Oklahoma. If you're making the playoff, you do it with third loss, and Alabama continues to charge full speed ahead towards an SEC title berth. Cato, this is an interesting matchup, man. It was very, very tricky to break down when it comes to what you're getting from the Oklahoma offense. What are your thoughts on this game ahead of this battle in Tuscaloosa?
I'm really excited for this game. That was a great preview of it, and I think it just increased my own excitement for it. I think part of the excitement comes from just the fact that we talked to John Mateer last week, and he pretty much told us his team made a decision to not lose to Tennessee. Mm-hmm. They were over our dead bodies, we are going to leave everything on the field. Now they're coming off of a bye week, and they're going to double down on that. That just, John Mateer leading his team, what they're capable of in this spot, trying to keep their playoff lives alive. I think it's going to be the most dangerous team Alabama has played this year from a psychological standpoint. That alone has me super excited for this matchup. And even just the little things like the bye week and Venables being able to chill and really scheme up and try to figure out a way to stop this Alabama offense. But I think you have to dare Alabama to run the ball.
Yeah.
Right? That is their clear weakness right now. I would dare them to run the ball. I would drop as many people as I could in the passing situations and try to make Ty Simpson figure it out. And you talked about the quick game being such a valuable thing for Alabama, but they want to push the ball downfield.
Yeah.
The quick game has to be there for them because it's an extension of the run game because they haven't been great running the ball. So I'm just really curious. That's the matchup I'm really, really keyed in on is that Alabama offense versus the Oklahoma defense because I think Oklahoma's defense, I mean, it's not like a shocking statement. They are very equipped to slow down this attack. They're still leading the SEC in points allowed per game, yards allowed per game. They've got it figured out, but like you called him, man, the ace of spades, man. That man, Ty Simpson, is just his processing is so fast. No one's been able to speed him up this year at all. He drops back, he goes through his reads, and he makes the right decisions. And if he has to extend the play, he does that too, and he virtually hands the ball to people down the field. So I'm just really curious to see what Venables cooks up. I think you have to make them run the ball. What do you think as far as what Venables needs to do? Even with the quick game, man, like trap those corners, put him in positions to get some pop and get some hits. Like I think that is going to be the matchup that decides the game, I think.
Just got to disrupt Ty Simpson, which is such a tall task because even when he sped up, Cato, to what you just said, he doesn't look like he's out of control. Like he's throwing back foot down there in the red zone against LSU, back foot laser strike to Ryan Williams between two defenders, and you're like, that should have been a lot more difficult than he made it look. That ball should have fluttered or had less velocity. He's just like frozen rope society to his guys. He just what you said, he's placing the football, he's layering the football. There's no club he doesn't have in the bag. And so if you're Brent Venables, it's like maybe we show him something they haven't seen before. I mean, I think you have to ask more of your DBs in this spot, 110%. You got to risk it for the biscuit, high risk, high reward, playoff time. Like, you got to find a way to get Ty Simpson off his pivot. And then what you just said, force him to run the football.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, too, because he's not some crazy athlete. Like, Ty's a good athlete, but, like, no one's really worried about him in that regard. And even just from a physical skill set standpoint, there's nothing super jump off the page concerning about what he does, but he is so fundamentally sound. And no matter what's going around his feet in the pocket, like he's going to set his feet, aim them at his target, and shoot. And he hits most of the time. I'm very curious if Oklahoma can take him out of those fundamentals because fundamentally this guy is like, I'm not saying he's the talent of these guys, but like Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck, like when you think of them playing in the college level, like they just look like they'd been coached so hard on their technique, and no one's been able to take them off of it. So it's going to be a cohesive thing for Oklahoma. Like, if they can get pressure and get him off his time, that's great. Teams have been able to do that, but he just resets and makes it work. You need the pressure to complement good coverage to put him in some positions that make him uncomfortable, because I think just one or the other is not going to cut it. If no one's open, he can make a play with his legs.
Yeah.
And if you rush too many and don't get there, he's going to find the weakness in the coverage. So that chess battle, man, I'm pumped to watch that. Always pumped to watch John Mateer. Hopefully this bye week, too, the thumb's feeling a little bit better. But Ty Simpson versus Brent Venables, man, and Ryan Grubb, man, I cannot wait to watch that. This game couldn't come sooner, man. I'm pumped.
And that's the thing that makes you lose a little bit of sleep at night picking Alabama is, yes, but John Mateer. Yes, but like the Brent Venables willing this team to a victory. Like the game against Tennessee, Cato, having picked Tennessee in that game, I was like, man, I think they're about to run away with this thing. I remember texting you before the R. Mason Thomas stiff arm hurt around the world. I was like, is Tennessee about to like start pouring it on here?
Yeah.
And then Oklahoma did what Oklahoma's done, and opportunistic on the defensive side. John Mateer settles in and starts running the football. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't feel great picking Bama to cover, but I do think they get it done ultimately at home, and it's going to be a good battle of quarterbacks, nothing else, man.
Yeah, man, the Sooners are desperate right now, so I'm pumped to see that for sure. And I'm pumped to see this next game, too, man. We got a nice little SEC slate here.
Yeah, man, it's a good one. This was almost the BetMGM game of the week. Texas at Georgia. Georgia favored by 6. Curious to see if that number moves at all. 7:30 Eastern, ABC. This is Herbie and Fowler. For Texas, man, it feels like they're kind of hot at the right time. Feels like they finally found their mojo. Arch Manning went for over 300 yards the last 2 weeks. Got a little bye week. Hit the Warby Parkers while you're watching some games. You're hitting the Viore Sweats if you're Arch Manning. You're the master of your own fate if you're Texas. I know it doesn't feel like it across the college football public, because look at Texas. You say, okay, 2-loss team. Already lost to Ohio State to start the year. Yeah, that ugly Florida loss. Y'all, if Texas wins out, they will not just be in the college football playoff. That's obvious. They might get a bye in the college football playoff. If they beat Georgia in this game, then beat A&M to end the season, and then likely beat Alabama in the SEC championship game is who they would play, I don't think that team is playing a first-round college football playoff game. I think they're watching a first-round college football playoff game. So for Texas, all the things we said about you in the preseason suddenly are on the table with them contending for a national championship and making a playoff run and all those things. That is on the table. Now, unfortunately, you got to go play Georgia. And not just any Georgia. You got to play home Georgia, betwixt the hedges. You got to play November Georgia. Because last week, to put this to bed, I was breaking down Georgia, Mississippi State, and I told y'all, like, hey, this game gives me the heebie-jeebies. Mississippi State, they got some firepower offensively. Georgia has been notorious for starting slow. I don't know, man. Georgia feels very trap game-ish to me. I don't know if Kirby Smart showed his team that or if they just heard that across the entire college football public space all week long and Georgia pounded it, or Kirby Smart pounded it into his Georgia team's head. Georgia came out there and thwacked Mississippi State. And it felt a little bit to me watching Georgia take belt to cheeks against Mississippi State like we had seen a flip be switched internally in Athens. If that's the case, man, we're in for an absolute battle. First question in this game, is Arch seeing it clearly? Because it feels like the last couple of weeks against Mississippi State and against Vandy, Arch is seeing it and he's trusting it. You listen to different people in the space and they talk about Arch's eyes being so much better. If that's the case, here we go now. Because I trust Steve Sarkisian given a full bye week, and I trust these weapons at Texas, should they all be healthy, they're going to be able to get something going in the pass game here against Georgia. Now, for the record, I don't know if I love the full 3-and-a-hitch drop-back pass game against Georgia. I like a lot more of the get it out on the perimeter, the extension of the run game, if you will. Make sure it's out of Arch Manning's hands quickly, read it all pre-snap, and have all the answers, and then go from there. That's possible here for Texas. It's very, very possible. Now, on the flip side of that, though, yeah, it's a year ago. Okay, it's a different Georgia football team. But I think we all saw that snapshot of Arch Manning getting into the game against Georgia at the end of the first half and then coming off the sideline after getting a strip sack. And the camera pans to him during the broadcast, and Arch is just glazed over, big eyes, hair's a little bit disheveled. And maybe it was just the camera caught him in the wrong moment. Who hasn't been there? But it felt a little bit like, hey, this dude's in a blender right now. And the people operating that blender behind the counter is a one Glenn Schumann, DC for Georgia, and a one Kirby Smart. The blender boys, if you will. Now, here's something to watch, though. Georgia, they haven't really been a team that gets after the quarterback all that much. Georgia is currently 128th in college football in terms of sack rate, 3% on the year in terms of defensive snaps. So it would be very Kirby Smart-esque if they just threw a curveball at him here and they started getting after Arch. But if Arch is seeing it, letting it rip, there's going to be plays downfield. I fully believe that. Now, for Georgia, if that's the case, on the offensive side, once again, you will need dressed-up Georgia offense. We've made this comparison many times, but Gunnar Stockton and this Georgia offense to me is like the polo of college football. If you need to go get 40, you need to dress that polo up a little bit. It's a nice event. Throw on a little sports coat, throw some slacks on there, some dress shoes, you're good to go. If it's a little more casual, hey, go with the some shorts here, some Vans. We just need a $196 from you, Gunnar, and a couple of yards on the ground. 2 touchdowns, don't turn the football over. We can do that. It's going to be the former in this spot. It's going to be, we're going to probably need to score a little bit here against this Texas offense. Now, I feel that way for 2 reasons. One, you would like to be able to, obviously, if Texas is scoring points, keep pace with them. Let's say Texas has a slow start. Let's say, hey, those hedges just got some magic to them, and Arch Manning is kind of having a slower start off the bye week, and Georgia's playing with some inspiration in November Georgia fashion. You want to be able to force the issue with Arch Manning. All of a sudden, you look up, if you're Arch Manning, 14-0 Georgia. Hey, I start to maybe press a little bit. Maybe I start to fit some throws in some windows I wouldn't have if it was a tied football game. You get Arch Manning pressing against that Georgia defense with who's in charge of that defense. That's where this thing gets very, very slippery if you're a Texas fan. Now, for Georgia, I'm keeping a very close eye on what Oscar Delp's doing in this game. Go back to the Vandy game. Texas, for whatever reason, had trouble aligning to stop the passing game to the tight ends. We'll see if they fix it in this spot. But Eli Stowers, who's, to be fair, one of the best tight ends in college football, had a career. He's had 7 catches for $146 and 2 touchdowns. Has Texas fixed that? Because if they haven't, Gunnar Stockton has proven he's good enough downfield to beat you. And Oscar Delp, I think, is every bit as dangerous as they want Eli Stowers to give this secondary, and quite frankly, that second level of that Texas defense, some real issues. The matchup of the game to me in this spot, the Texas front 7, Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, you know all the names, against this Georgia offensive line. Can Texas keep Georgia from just sitting back and pounding the rock? Because Georgia has been a bully on the ground. even in losses, like the one loss that Georgia had this year to Alabama, they went for over 200 yards on the ground. That statement drive to start the Tennessee game. Again, 200 yards on the ground against that Tennessee team, 200 yards on the ground against Ole Miss, 300 yards against Mississippi State. Can Texas maybe not take that away, but just neutralize that a little bit? Just make it more of a negotiation than a definitive, hey, this is what we're going to do here for Georgia. Because as good as Gunnar Stockton is, a lot of what he's been able to do has been off of play action, has been off of this threat of, well, hey, we got to commit extra numbers to the box because you're Georgia, you're on the football so well. We got to pay attention there. And then you have Zachariah Branch downfield. I mentioned Oscar Delp, Noah Thomas, rather. That's something to keep an eye on here when it comes to how Georgia's going to attack offensively. Who are you if you take the run game away? Just something to keep a pulse on. Because if Georgia can just run the football, could be a long day anyway. Georgia's top 10 in America when it comes to game control. Time of possession numbers favor Georgia drastically there. Also, just helping your quarterback out, being able to run the football, as we just mentioned, would go a long way in deciding this game if you're the Dogs. Now, on the flip side, we haven't really mentioned the Texas run game. Like, make no mistake, Texas, the way that they're built this year offensively, it's not supposed to be the Arch Manning show. Because that was kind of the narrative coming into the year was Arch Manning's the second coming of Cam Newton. He's going to walk in there and take over games. And it's like, well, yeah, his last name is Manning, so I get why people get carried away with that thought. But like Steve Sarkisian, his offenses are built to run the football and throw the ball off of that. If you want to help Arch Manning in this spot, Texas, find some rhythm in the ground game. Find a way to take some pressure off of Arch and give him a little bit of 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2. That would be a way where you settle Arch into the game, get the bye week rust off of him, if that's a thing that exists, and you have a shot to go keep your college football playoff hopes very much alive by beating a team in Georgia that I'm expecting to be number 5 tonight in these rankings at their own place. Not a bad resume booster for the folks out there in Austin. So I really like what Arch has done the last couple of weeks, man. I do. Over 300 yards the last 2 weeks. He looks more comfortable. He looks more confident. He's letting it rip. We're seeing a little bit more of an edgy Arch Manning, which I'm here for all the way. But I think that Kirby Smart and this Georgia defense, again, November Georgia, not to knock Vanderbilt or knock Mississippi State, but I just think that the personnel of Georgia is a little bit different than what they've seen. I think that the overall momentum Georgia has right now, a little bit different than what Texas has dealt with. If it was in Austin, I might feel different, but I think Georgia finds a way to get it done again. I think it could be Traitsy Georgia. It could be Georgia fourth quarter finds a way to get it done. I think it's a close game for the duration. I think Texas starts out frisky, but at the end of the day, man, Gunnar Stockton, in Gunnar Stockton aw shucks fashion, just finds a way to make a couple more plays at the end of this thing. Maybe a couple less mistakes, too, than A1 Arch Manning does. Final score, Georgia gets it done, and Georgia covers. Dogs 31, Longhorns 24 in Athens, as Georgia keeps their SEC championship hopes very much so alive. But that'll be fun. Excited to break that one down after the fact as well. But don't count Arch and the boys out, man. Got a high hand right now, and maybe that makes a difference. But again, we're rolling with the Dogs. Now, College Game Day. On a Pittsburgh, PA, man. I love that they're going to this game. This is going to be awesome. Notre Dame at Pitt, noon Eastern, ABC. Notre Dame, a 10.5-point favorite. For Notre Dame, we talk about style points and what they're going to have to do to impress the committee. This is likely your last matchup that's going to have a opponent with a number next to their name in Pitt. Pitt very quietly controls their own college football playoff destiny. Now, this won't count towards that, obviously, with Notre Dame not being in the ACC. But you'd like to think if you're Pitt, if you can go beat Notre Dame, how different do you look at the rest of your schedule when you look in the mirror? Hey, we just beat a top 10 team in college football if we're Pitt. We just took down a team that was coached by a guy that coached the national title game a year ago, Marcus Freeman. Think about the level of swagger you have and how dangerous that would be for this team that, again, controls their own college football playoff destiny. I'm excited to watch it, man. Now, Pitt, I think they're going to move the football against Notre Dame. I really do. Like Mason Heinschel, people throw around like the Baker Mayfield comp, I think, a little bit too loosely. We see a dude who's like somewhat athletic, a little bit undersized, and everyone's just like, oh, Baker Mayfield. Mason Heinschel actually, I think, is probably a fair comp to Baker Mayfield with the way that he ad-libs, the way that he has the arm strength, the accuracy, all those things. Notre Dame, what do we say? Every single week we break down Notre Dame game. They're going to play a lot of man coverage. It's who they are. It's what they do. They like their guys versus your guys. Hey, Pitt's got some guys now. They're not a lot of national names, but like Kenny Johnson has been the epitome of productive for Pitt all year long. Cade Bell, I think is one of the best young OCs, not one of the best OCs period in college football. He's calling a game and a half every single week for Pitt. Pitt is going to move the football. Now, I think in that spot, when did they move the football is important to note. We see Pitt jump on these guys early. You go from McAfee, likely shirtless at the game day desk, sending you out to a tremendous college football Saturday. You get the game rolling. Pitt gets out there, gets up to 10-0 lead, 13-0 lead on Notre Dame. All of a sudden now, hang on. Pitt's got momentum. Pitt's got some swagger. That opening script from Cade Bell was a dime and a half. Okay now. Hey, CJ Carr, you able to answer? Hey, Jeremiah Love, we rolling right away here, brother? We got that juice from the jump? Because I think Pitt has a very interesting opportunity here to capture momentum early and put C.J. Carr or Notre Dame in a spot they haven't been in here in some time. I go back to the Miami game being the last time I remember them being down to this or to that sort of detriment. I think the trenches, though, will still belong to Notre Dame. Watching Pitt on tape, they're very aggressive, but that front seven, man, 1st and 10, they like to stunt a lot. They like to move the defensive end underneath. They get the nose tackle moving out. They got a lot of games being played up front, which is fine. You're able to be successful if you can disrupt an offensive line and get their communication out of whack. But here's the thing. That's a difficult plan to stop this Notre Dame rushing attack with. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, the best running back room in college football. Jeremiah Love currently making his case for the Heisman Trophy. He's a walking 90-yard touchdown run. I don't like the idea of you being busy up front with playing these games and also being able to stop Jeremiah Love with a full head of steam. I think that opens you up to a lot of gash plays. Now, going back to how Pitt plays defense, they're going to be aggressive in that box. Okay, they'll roll a safety down. They'll trigger quickly. The bet for Pitt, the way they play defense, they are gambling that you as an offense will not be able to, one, run the football against them with the extra numbers. Okay, we'll see. Let's just say you're right. If that happens, their bet is that you're not able to consistently enough have a dynamic downfield passing offense to just live off of that and win that way. And they say if you beat us that way, cool. Well, not cool, but hat tip to you, and we'll see you down the road here. So it comes down to, let's just say Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price don't get the total momentum they'd like to have in this spot, which, again, would surprise me. I think they'll run the football, but let's say Pitt answers some scores. And let's say that maybe they find some momentum in the second half. They're able to get something going in that front seven to force some third and passing. It's going to come down to C.J. Carr. And the thing I like about Notre Dame in this spot is they've done a great job bringing C.J. Carr along. Last week, I know it's Navy, but they were letting it rip downfield. 13 yards an attempt, finished 13 of 16. That progress for C.J. Carr makes me feel really good about them in this game, what they're going to be able to accomplish. So I think that Pitt brings some juice early. I really do. The skill players, I mentioned Kenny Johnson, just have a bunch of different ways to beat you offensively, whether it's the perimeter game, the downfield passing game. I mentioned Heinzel and what he can do with his legs. Unless we see C.J. Carr make some redshirt freshman mistakes, I think Notre Dame just has too much across the board in too many ways to still win this football game. So I think we see the mature Notre Dame. I think we see C.J. Carr take care of the football in this spot, not let the moment be too big for him. I think, honestly, too, go back to the games Notre Dame played already this year. Miami, A&M. I know they were both losses, but we talk about the heavy bar, having a good level of resistance for your football team at different points throughout the year. I think that serves them well in this game, plus the USC win. I think Notre Dame ends up winning the football game. I think that Pitt actually keeps it close. Could be a little backdoor action here, but I think Pitt actually covers. I'll take Notre Dame to win, Pitt to cover. Final score, 30-22 in Pittsburgh. And Notre Dame, at that point now, clear your final hurdle, and you're probably in a spot to make the college football playoff, all things being equal. All right, so we got a couple more predictions to get to here, and then we'll check in on the conference title race. Before we do that, though, I don't think the committee is going to do this tonight, but I think they should. I think Texas A&M has a case to be the second-ranked team in all of college football. All right, now this is not an anti-Indiana segment, but I think we need to just collectively have a conversation about this, and I'll make my case right now. Before we do that, though, college football sickos, if you love college football with every fiber of your being, if you're an A&M fan, we picked y'all in the preseason to be a college football playoff team and took all the flack that came with it. But make sure you subscribe right here to the On3 YouTube channel, College Football, nothing but college football. We will have a reaction for you tonight to these rankings. Right, I'm pointing to my right. I guess your left. You're watching this because we got a TV in the studio. We watch the rankings, react to them in real time, and we get that out as quickly as possible. But going back to my point here, I think A&M should be number 2. Now, between A&M and Indiana, I think it is a Coke Pepsi taste test. I don't think you're wrong going either direction. I see all the appeal with Indiana, dude. I got a Sig 10 hoodie at home that some good people sent me. I think Kurt Cignetti is one of the best coaches in college football, and his record backs it up right now. I think Fernando Mendoza's got a case to be a Heisman Trophy caliber kind of player. But when we talk about the difference between these two teams and how we would rank them, I don't want to do the thing where we overanalyze resumes and overanalyze the conference stuff. But when I watch A&M play, I just see more top-end juice. I see Craver, Concepcion, the explosive plays, Marcel Reed, and that's one part of it. You can say what you want about what Surratt has been for Indiana and talk about the run game for Indiana. And again, Coke Pepsi taste test. If you fight me on that, that's more than fine. But here's the thing. Where this conversation to me has a little bit more validity to it is when you talk about the survival pieces for A&M. Just look at what happened these past couple of weeks for both sides. Indiana loses Elijah Surratt, one of the best receivers in college football. He's not available for the Penn State game. And what happens? A talented Penn State team takes them down to the freaking wire. Okay? There's no shame in that. Penn State's a good football team when it comes to their talent profile. Okay? That's one side of this. A&M, they lose their best offensive playmaker, Le'Veon Moss, and they don't miss a freaking beat. Okay? Now, they didn't play Penn State, so I understand. We're still trying to kind of gauge, okay, that filter versus this filter. But I'm looking at the way that Texas A&M is just playing right now. I think there's so many different pieces that can beat you any given Saturday. If you were to tell me, hey, both Indiana and A&M, you're getting their C-plus game, who do you feel better about picking to win a football game against a faceless opponent? I'd say, okay, C-plus game from A&M means I'm probably not getting the Marcel Reed downfield juice that I like to have. But we get the perimeter passing game where you got Concepcion in space. That's probably still available in a C-plus game. I get Marcel Reed ad-libbing, making things happen in a C-plus game. Honestly, I think we've seen A&M now on multiple occasions win C-plus games against pretty talented rosters. I wouldn't say A&M beating Auburn was by any stretch of the imagination their B-plus game. Missing field goals, can't convert in the red zone. I thought that was A&M's C-plus game. And guess what? Auburn has a lot of NFL players on that roster. I know it's funny to say out loud because of Auburn's record and them firing their head coach, but we know Auburn's a talented football team. If you track how they've recruited over the course of the last couple of years, how they've gone to the portal the last couple of years, it's a good football team. And A&M on their C-plus day found a way to get it done. Talk about what A&M has been on their C-plus day on the defensive side. A lot over 40 points to Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame's a good football team. Notre Dame is going to be top 10 in tonight's rankings. I fully believe that. Notre Dame's going to be a college football playoff team. I fully believe that. But your defense went out there and did not look good by any stretch of the imagination against a redshirt freshman quarterback. But guess what? Your offense stepped up, found a way to get it done, and they scored over 40 points as well and found a way to win the football game. On the last play of the game, virtually, did A&M. So your pushback, if you're saying Indiana's the number 2 team in the country and not A&M, you're saying, well, but JD, we haven't seen Indiana have a C-plus game. Isn't that in and of itself, outside of the Penn State spot, I suppose, isn't that in and of itself kind of defeating your point? Again, I hear where you're coming from, but I go back to the filters I've seen from A&M over the course of this season. I don't want to do the thing where we compare, the SEC versus the Big Ten. I have no interest in doing that right now. But I look at the filters for A&M versus some of the other teams that they've had matched up against. LSU just held Alabama, a team that I would say is one of the best offenses in college football, to 20 points in Tuscaloosa. A&M scored 49 on that team. Missouri also held Bama to less than 30. Just scored 38 on that team. Okay, Notre Dame, top 10 defense in college football. Again, A&M scored over 40. So I'm not knocking Indiana and what they've done at this point in the year. I'm just saying, if it's me, I feel better about the top-end juice for A&M, and I also feel better about all the pieces you could subtract from A&M, and I'd still get a really good product team that I think could beat a lot of teams on their B-plus day, quite frankly. So, again, this is not an SEC versus Big Ten segment. I think the committee will have Indiana at number 2 tonight. More power to them. But for me, the personnel, the top-end speed, the ways that A&M can win, they just have more answers in my estimation. So, the beautiful part about this, though, is I think we'll see it play itself out on the field here in the college football playoff. And teams change, teams evolve, and I think right now A&M is evolving and changing into a better football team in the month of November. Just my money. A couple more predictions to get to here. Let's talk about Iowa at USC, all right? USC, 6.5-point favorite in the Coliseum, 3:30 Eastern, Big Ten Network now, all right? Now, USC, they're in playoff mode. You lose another game if you're USC, you are not playing games in the month of December. Pretty straightforward. Iowa just lost a heartbreaker to Oregon at your place. Spoiler mode, baby. Can we get up off the mat? Can we find some juice? Can we find some disdain internally for that other team, that other logo that comes into your conference now, a fair weather team that comes into your conference? Can you go to their place and make a statement and have a character level win? I'm excited to see it. Now, for USC, I think they're going to force Iowa to play their style of ball. I think USC is going to do a phenomenal job in the screen game. I think it'll be Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon. They're going to do a phenomenal job forcing the tempo on this Iowa offense to keep pace. Now, Iowa, even though they didn't have a great showing last week offensively, still scoring over 30 points a game, all the Hawkeyes. So this is not your mom and dad's Iowa. This is a team that maybe can't win in a shootout, but they're going to have a little bit more horsepower than Iowa's had historically. They're not a laughing matter when it comes to the 25 points a game and that whole deal that was happening a couple years ago of what Iowa had to get to keep their OC. Different Iowa, different spot. Tim Lester doing a great job calling that show over there with A1 Mark Gronowski. There's two crucial matchups I'm watching in this game. Matchup number one, Jaden Maiava, quarterback for USC, against Phil Parker, DC for Iowa. Hey, Iowa, they had Dante Moore's number a little bit last weekend now, man. I know it was bad conditions, but there was a couple plays where you're like, hey, Iowa, yeah, they're good on the back end personnel-wise, but that interception that Dante Moore threw in the end zone, that was a scheme win in my mind. That was a Phil Parker dialing it up kind of win, just confusing the young quarterback. Jaden Maiava, as good as he's been this year, the knock on him coming into the season was dude's a little bit of a gunslinger now, right? He'll take some chances with the football. If you take some chances against Iowa and you're wrong, give them back the football. Maybe Iowa gets to control the clock a little bit. Jaden Maiava gets less possessions. That would be a world where USC leaves the Coliseum with an L. Now, if Jaden Maiava is out here just diagnosing like a doctor and delivering like a midwife, then we got a different story on our hands. And Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane probably having a good day at the respective office. Now, matchup number two I'm watching. The Iowa run game against the USC defense. USC, this is what you signed up for when you came to the Big Ten. You signed up for playing teams in Iowa that when you think about them, you think about neck rolls, think about smelling salts, you think about fullbacks, you think about running the freaking ball. Iowa is going to look into your soul for 4 quarters and find out if you really want to stop the run. We've talked about it for the last couple of months about USC. With how they're getting better on the defensive side of the ball. That front seven, they're improving. Okay, those are fun to talk about. What happens when you lock the gates and you got the Hawkeyes for 4 quarters? You got to tackle Mark Gronowski on the quarterback design run. Are you really about that life? Because if you're not, we'll find out in this game. I promise you we'll find out in this game. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Iowa, this is who you are. USC, that's kind of been the question about them, right? I just gave you that whole spiel about USC. Are you up for it? Neck rolls, this, that, and the other. Iowa, you have to be able to take advantage of this potential advantage for you. Like if you're going to win this game, you have to stick to your script and play your style of ball, okay? We'll see if that happens. Hey, random thought here for you, though. I mentioned the Iowa run game. What about the USC run game? Because Oregon's ran for 261 against Iowa at their place in a terrible weather kind of game. It's going to be a clear game, it looks like here. 0% chance of precipitation at the Collie. Should be better footing for A1 King Miller running downhill. I don't think you see USC go for 261 and 7 a carry like Oregon did, but I do think now it's in play to assume that USC could get something going on the ground, which then in turn could make for some real estate downfield, which for Jaden Maiava and that receiving core, if there's real estate downfield, we're scoring a lot of points. And that's not a good life to live here if you're the Iowa Hawkeyes making that trip out to the Collie. Now for Mark Gronowski, quarterback for Iowa, you just need to have the good in-law approach to this game. In-laws, I say it a lot, man. You don't need to be the life of the party. You don't need to make all the funny jokes. You don't need to be the story of the holiday dinner whenever you're leaving that Thanksgiving or that Christmas or whatever. You just got to be timely. Hey, dishes, I'm there. Hey, mother-in-law needs some help with taking food to the table, I'm on that. Mark Gronowski, 3rd and 6, we just need that, brother. Just convert timely plays. I don't need you throwing the ball around the yard, keeping pace with Jaden Maiava. I need you to extend drives because Iowa wins this game by obviously keeping USC somewhat at bay offensively, but that is much more easy when that USC offense isn't on the field. If we look up here at the end of the game and it's like 38 minutes time of possession favoring Iowa, okay now. Okay, we got a shot here, Hawkeyes. So I mentioned the game flow here. does Iowa get a chance to jump early on USC and make it, call it 10-3, maybe it's 13-3, I don't know. Does Iowa get a chance to get leverage in this spot, get USC in that sleeper hold, and then just anaconda squeeze? Is that the game we could see here? Because that's the game that Iowa would have a way to win. Low scoring, rock fight, kind of like you had last week against Oregon, except I think you would have a better chance at winning this style of game because of the trenches for USC. I don't think they're up the caliber that Oregon is. So Iowa, do you get a chance to apply pressure and, quite frankly, choke USC out? That would favor you, obviously. Now for USC, if they get up 10 and Iowa has to become the sumo wrestler trying to run a track meet with you, then all bets are off. I think the weather is on the side of USC here. I think also that game for Iowa against Oregon is a little bit fugazi, not knocking the Hawkeyes, but there were a lot of things that favored Iowa that made that game as close as it was. Oregon was down two of their best playmakers. The weather itself did not favor the Oregon passing game. I told you, 0% precipitation for this game in Los Angeles. All right. USC also, to my knowledge, no, knock on wood here, no injuries to any of their playmakers at this point in time, so you should be dealing with a pretty healthy lineup for the old Cardinal and Gold out there. I think USC wins. I think USC scores. I think USC plays their style of game. I think Iowa's frisky early in the same way and kind of gives them a little bit of something to think about at halftime, but I think USC pulls away. The weapons, the firepower is too much. USC wins. USC covers. Final score, USC 27, Iowa 20. And USC now, looking down the barrel of a game against Oregon, potentially some very massive college football playoff implications when that game arrives. Stay tuned for that. But USC wins, USC covers at home. We got a game in big noon on Fox. Wrigley Field, Michigan favored by 10 at Northwestern. Northwestern been a little bit of a problem for some teams. Okay, it gave Nebraska a little bit of a scare. Beat Penn State. Northwestern, if you catch them all on the wrong day, they can do some damage here. Michigan, it's not going to be a game where you walk out there and you have that library vibe, which I thought you might have at first glance in this game, going to Northwestern and having a 12,000 limited capacity spot. It's Wrigley Field, all right? So you'd have to think now there'll be some Northwestern folks in attendance, but this could also be in some ways now. I know Michigan alumni base is huge. Maybe you got a little bit extra home juice at your back here if you're Michigan. But for Michigan, you are right now looking at the game against Ohio State and saying, that is our ticket. That's it for us. Go beat Ohio State, be a 2-loss team, be 10-2, and proud. If you beat Ohio State that last game of the regular season like you've done for the last couple of years, you're probably in the college football playoff. However, can you handle this spot, Michigan? Can you be mature with a true freshman quarterback against a good enough Northwestern team to beat you? Can you find a way to handle this spot correctly and keep those college football playoff hopes alive? It remains to be seen. But if you want to simplify things for your true freshman quarterback, man, you run the football. And unfortunately for Northwestern, they're allowing 5 yards a carry. I don't love that formula with what Michigan has been identity-wise over the course of this season. There's a world where Michigan wins this game, and we see a Bryce Underwood stat line like he had against Michigan State. Less than 100 yards passing, efficient through the air, maybe one touchdown on the ground as well. But you don't need to ask all that much of Bryce Underwood, at least as it stands right now, breaking down this thing, as maybe you will in those games in the future. So if I'm Northwestern here, Northwestern folks, it's a good school now, all right? There's probably some good self-awareness on that side in the Northwestern locker room. I think they know they probably can't stop Michigan up front with an honest box. Like, I would be wildly surprised if we don't see Northwestern sell out to stop the run. So, me personally, if I'm rooting for Michigan to make the college football playoff, or I'm holding the Bryce Underwood overcard on any of his props this weekend, I'm hoping and praying that Michigan says, all right, Northwestern, you've proven now you're going to throw the kitchen sink at us to stop the run. If you can stop the run, more power to you. If you can minimize the run, more power to you. I'd be really excited to see Sharon Moore, Chip Lindsey say, all right, Bryce, Ohio State in a few weeks here. Let's let him get warm a little bit here. Let's do what Ohio State's doing, what Notre Dame's doing, bring our young quarterback along. Let's let him cut it loose a little bit. Because if you can do that, it's going to be over by halftime for this game with Northwestern. I understand it's in Chicago, so technically a home-ish environment potentially in play here for Northwestern. But if Bryce Underwood can throw the football and then Michigan is able to run the ball off of that as well, it's going to be all bets are off at that point in time if you are betting Northwestern on that side. Now, for Northwestern, the offense has got a to-do list in front of you, okay? Find your matchup is the first part of this to-do list. Griffin Wilde is your go-to receiver. He's got 43 catches on the year. The next closest amount of receptions to that for Northwestern is 19. You're force-feeding 17 all day long. So if you're Preston Stone, quarterback transfer from SMU, if you remember correctly, now at Northwestern, just take what the defense gives you, man. Which you haven't done an awesome job at doing to this point in the year. 11 touchdowns and 9 picks for one Preston Stone. In this spot, though, I do think Michigan, if they're not overly aggressive, they're going to, I think, surrender some of that short passing game. Like Michigan, the way that they operate on that side of the football, they almost dare you to be patient enough to get to the fourth quarter with them. They dare you to be disciplined enough to not make the big mistake that turns the ball over to their running game where they just make you submit at that point in time. Can Preston Stone be patient enough and disciplined enough in this spot to go to his matchup, to force-feed Griffin Wilde, to not get too ambitious? If they see something downfield, just take what the defense gives you, stay in your own lane, do what you got to do to get to the fourth quarter. Now, in the fourth quarter, here's the tough part. I keep going back to this for Michigan. This game is still about the big human beings. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if Bryce Underwood, again, doesn't have this massive breakout game in the month of November where you think differently about the Michigan offense ahead of Ohio State and you're looking at all the weapons that Michigan has and saying, okay, now if Bryce Underwood's throwing like that, here we go. Even if that doesn't happen, I still don't like the numbers for Northwestern against the run. There's not enough there to get me excited. If USC is running the ball like that against Northwestern, what's Michigan going to do? That's not knocking USC, but I'm just saying this is Michigan's identity. I mean, God, family, and run the football is what Michigan Wolverine ball is all about, man. So I think in this spot, you can't allow 5 yards of carry and feel good about yourself going into this game. Also, the turnover numbers from Preston Stone, the narrow path for Northwestern to winning this game. I don't think Northwestern either has a great chance to run the ball in this spot with Michigan being top 15 in the country against the run. There's too much there for me to feel good about Northwestern pulling off the upset. If it's going to happen, it means that Bryce Underwood had some kind of gutter ball game, and that would be surprising because if Bryce Underwood starts to have a shaky start, at that point then, Michigan would just turn around and run the football. So it would take both stupidity and a freshman game from Michigan to ultimately lose this football game, and I don't think we see either. I think we see Michigan win. I think Michigan covers, and we keep on hurtling towards that game. Last week of the regular season, Michigan-Ohio State with Michigan having a chance, if they win that game, to punch their college football playoff ticket. All right. So the college football playoff race is something we'll keep a pulse on throughout the entirety of this week, moving forward here with the rankings tonight. But with the way the playoff is structured right now, you win your conference, any of these Power 4 teams, more than likely, you are in the dance. I say more than likely. There's a world now where you get a couple of G5 teams winning their conference and some chaos breaks out across the Power 4, but assuming that doesn't happen, let's check in on some of these conference title races with the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC. I'm not doing that by myself, though. No. I'm doing that with a very special individual who produces this show, two-time All-Sunbelt safety, man, the myth, the legend, Caden Smith. You know him as Cato. Cato, some of these feel cut and dry. The ACC we're saving for the last part of this segment because it's the most anarchy. But it's starting to get to that time, and you look at these conference title races, and you don't have to squint to see some of the matchups we are likely getting across the board here, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. It's very surprising which teams still control their own destiny, who's still in the mix, who's kind of ran away with it. It's November, man. It's conference title race season. It gets weird in November. They remember November, as we like to say on this show. So excited to unpack this and maybe try to predict some of the paths we have that are less cut and dry, and even maybe talk about some of the cut and dry ones. And some of these teams maybe looking across the way at a conference opponent that's at the top of the league and start thinking about what the conference title game is going to look like. Cut and dry age, man.
It feels like the world we're living in. When you look at the SEC, you mentioned this league, something Kirby Smart says a lot in any given press conference, pre or post game. Feels like right now, though, Cato, for Georgia, they're looking at A&M and Alabama in a crash course setting as meeting in Atlanta. Both teams in those standings are undefeated in the conference. Georgia's sitting there in the 3 spot, having that tiebreaker over Ole Miss, but not holding the tiebreaker over Alabama. I would be surprised if we didn't see A&M Bama in Atlanta. I also think that, quite frankly, those have been the 2 best teams to this point when it comes to trustworthiness and quarterback play and different ways to win. So I'd be shocked if we didn't see A&M and Bama face off in Atlanta for the conference championship. But, hey, Texas, also controls their own destiny. They're going to play Georgia this weekend. They're going to play A&M at the end of the year. A lot to unpack there with the SEC, but what are you watching there, Cato, across the board here in the SEC as we move into the month of November here and look down the home stretch?
Yeah, JD, I think specifically this weekend, I'm just looking at the disruptors, man, and that's Oklahoma and that's Texas. These are teams that are right on the brink of being in the playoff, being out of the playoff, and they have really good opportunities right ahead of them this weekend to shake things up. I mean, they'll be doing it in the name of them keeping themselves in the college football playoff race, but Alabama loses to Oklahoma. Next thing you know, they have another loss rather on their overall record and their first SEC loss. Then you have to think about that head-to-head against Georgia. It keeps them ahead, but then Georgia themselves playing a very hungry Texas team trying to keep their hopes alive. So I think after this weekend, it'll get a lot more clear, but I think it'd be super interesting if Texas or Oklahoma can put a win in the win column for the SEC for themselves and kind of like by default push Ole Miss maybe up a little bit even in the rankings, just because Ole Miss has their own head-to-head over Georgia, which is super clutch for them if there's any more disruption here. And I think them and A&M kind of have the easiest cakewalks going forward the rest of the year. You look at A&M playing South Carolina this weekend, an FCS opponent, and then Texas, which we'll see where that one's at. But then Ole Miss, again, just chilling. Like Ole Miss this weekend playing, I think they have no, they don't have a bye. They play Florida. Florida and then
Kiffin
Mississippi
Bowl.
State. Yeah. So
We'll
it could get weird the last week of the season. It's looking like A&M and Alabama. If they take care of business, they'll do their thing. But Texas and Oklahoma, weirdly, I think they're in an interesting spot in the conference to maybe shake some stuff up at the top.
Ole Miss is so intriguing because they're one of those teams that right now, just what you mentioned, they don't have the tiebreaker over Georgia. They're sort of blocked in that regard, so you're kind of open for some chaos. But Ole Miss, Cato, even though they only have one conference loss right now, if you were to put them in Atlanta somehow, some way, I keep saying this, get me in a four-quarter spot with Lane Kiffin holding the play calling sheet, with Trinidad Chambliss behind center, and let's see what freaking happens. Like, I think they are one of the most liable teams should they find their way to Atlanta. I would be very curious to see how they match up because I think Lane Kiffin could create some magic. And Ole Miss, on all years, man, when it was Jackson Dart last year and Walter Nolan last year, and they went all in the portal, the year after that with a D2 quarterback. We didn't even start the year. Ole Miss, if they find their way to Atlanta, that'd be one to monitor, I think. That'd be one to monitor when it comes to the Rebs out there.
Yeah, I accidentally said Ole Miss beat Georgia. That's their one.
No, I caught your
drift.
drift. No.
I was thinking of the LSU game, the
I caught your
Oklahoma
drift.
game, those big wins they got. But I think the interesting thing and the question I have for you, JD, if you're a coach and you're in that fringe spot, if you're a Georgia, if you are a Ole Miss, do you want to play in the SEC championship? As far as the outlook for the playoff, knowing your spot is there. We'd like to think that the Big Ten and the SEC runner-up, it's looking like those are the teams that will probably get those buys. I think your reward for playing in those games at the two conferences we regard the highest, I think you will get a buy. But we saw last year, the teams that got a bye didn't play well. Psychologically, if you were a head coach for one of these Big Ten or SEC teams, would you want to play in conference title weekend, or would you want to stay home and maybe roll the dice and start the playoff sooner? Playoff bye, conference title bye, it's kind of like a little trade-off there, I think.
Dude, it's such a great question, and it's not as cut and dry as I think most people believe it to be. I think if you're a head coach, there's the default of, well, you're a competitor. Competitors want to win the prize. The prize is winning the SEC or being a runner-up in the SEC and still getting a bye. That is the perceived prize. But, I mean, what you just said, if you get to stay in rhythm and host a playoff game, which I guarantee you the ADs are like, no, we'll host a playoff game. We'll get that cash money and we'll go forward from there.
Right.
I wonder if you don't play in this conference title game, and what we just said, you don't win the prize of a bye if you're the runner-up or the conference champ, which everyone would sign up to be the conference champ tomorrow, I think you're almost more dangerous in some ways of what you just said, keeping the rhythm, keeping your routine. We saw last year that was kind of the name of the game here, and I don't know if I want a full, 3 weeks plus to think about it. Like, I think I want to, if we're hot right now, especially if you're Ole Miss, I want to stay hot and be hot and keep going. Like, A&M to me is one of those teams, it sounds funny, I would actually worry about them if they got a bye in the college football playoff because of all the new pieces, because of last year, all those things. I don't know, Cato. It's an interesting spot.
Yeah, I think it's definitely different team to team, and these coaches obviously know their teams best, but not to look too hard into it, but A&M postseason last year, just folded against USC in that bowl game, and
Yeah.
they had to sit around for a while before playing in that game. I think Ole Miss would actually benefit the most if they stumbled into the SEC title game, just because you're playing Citadel. We'll see what the Florida game looks like. You play the Egg Bowl game. Like, it might help them to get one more rep under the heavy bar before going into the postseason versus a team like Alabama, who since the Florida State game just has jumped off the porch, and they're in win mode, and they know that their season's kind of been on the line since that first week, and we saw it bring the best out of them after that Florida State game. So definitely team to team, but always going to be an interesting narrative to follow, just given how last year went with the first round bye team. So love to see it. I have a friend who joked as soon as they expanded the playoff, he's like, "Oh, Saban's going to be resting guys in the SEC championship." So I don't know if we'll ever get that far, but just interesting to watch as far as who's in, who's out of the conference title weekend, and then how they play in the playoff.
Not to rabbit hole this thing, but I think when we go to 16, conference title weekend becomes play-in weekend. You got multiple teams trying to find a way to play into the conference, or to the college football playoff. Rather, the conference title will have been decided during the regular season. I digress, but I will say this: I think if you're Texas, they're so interesting to me because the way they finished with Georgia this weekend, Texas A&M the final weekend of the season, and then if you do find a way in the conference title game, you're like, okay, that's a lot of wear and tear on your roster. But I'm also like, there's a lot of youth on that roster. There's a lot of new pieces. Like, let's stay in rhythm here in some respects. Like, it's this interesting dichotomy of I want to keep this team running hot if we find a way to win the SEC, but at the same time, to play that level of competition that many weeks in a row, you'd almost think you would need a rest. Like Georgia needed a rest at the end of the regular season. And after they won the conference title last year, Kirby's like, no, we needed a rest, man. We needed to get our guys back healthy. So I don't know. It's curious.
Yeah, definitely different when you lose your starting quarterback, too. You're trying to get another guy in there like he was last year with Gunnar Stockton. I think Texas wouldn't mind getting Arch as many reps as possible if they're going into the postseason the way he's kind of turned things around the last 2 games he's played. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. We'll see who benefits from the rest, who maybe gets a little rusty. Rest over rust, man. It's going to be a debate as old as time, I think, in this playoff era. But what conference do you want to jump to next here?
Well, I wanted to get your thoughts here before we moved on. I still think it's A&M Bama.
Yeah,
Atlanta.
me too.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma, though, man, I think they're going to give Alabama their best shot this weekend, and I think that could shake some stuff up. But, yeah, just in this scenario, you lean A&M Alabama, and that'd be an exciting matchup.
It'd be awesome. Be awesome, those 2 teams in Atlanta. Let's move on to the Big Ten, though, huh? This also feels semi-cut and dry. Feels like Indiana, Ohio State on the crash course. Also, though, I would have said a week ago, it feels like Indiana's about to cover against Penn State. That did not happen. However, you're looking down the barrel of the Michigan game if you're Ohio State. That's really your last test. I don't think there's anything for Indiana that makes you feel all that unsure about your chances to be in Indy. But there's a couple of interesting teams here with USC, only 1 conference loss. Oregon, 1 conference loss. Michigan, 1 conference loss. And Michigan, if they beat Ohio State, would then have the tiebreaker over Ohio State to be in the Big Ten title game. However, they wouldn't have the tiebreaker over USC, so that whole thing would have to play itself out with those 2 teams. But Oregon also just chilling there with 1 loss, so it's a lot to unpack there. I think Michigan-Ohio State's the most interesting part of that whole thing with the conference title. I would still like to believe it's going to be Ohio State, Indiana, with how things are trending. But what are you looking at there, Cato, across the board here with these teams with 1 loss? And, Iowa's hanging there with 2 losses. Not to go down the rabbit hole, but a lot to unpack with the Big Ten. What are you checking out right now?
Right now, if I'm checking out Indiana, man. If it's looking like it's going to look right now and I don't think anything's going to get in their way, that could be a home game for them, no? I mean,
legit, you would think.
Indiana having a conference title game in Indy, I think it's going to be a home game, pseudo home game. I think for Indiana is the most interesting thing, I think, outside of the actual race itself. But you mentioned it, Michigan, Ohio State game, always big stakes, even bigger stakes when you have the playoff era that we live in now. And I think the most intriguing part is, do we see a world where Michigan can win that game and not make the playoff? Like, they're ranked 21 heading into this week. We'll see if they move up. I don't know how much more they're going to move up between this game and their game against Ohio State, but a win against the number 1 team country. I'm just curious. I think the biggest thing I'm going to watch this week with the rankings is how much movement we have and just the upcoming weeks. How much do teams move depending on who you win and who you lose to, and how much does that give Michigan room to jump from the 20s to a team who automatically finds themselves maybe in the 12s and a team that can make a playoff push here with a big win. So that's definitely the thing to watch there. Oregon doesn't have any easy games on their schedule left. We talked about that as far as them playing only 6-win teams.
Yeah.
Showed a lot of toughness against Iowa. I think post-Indiana game, man, they're just looking tough. They're running the ball tough. It's not always pretty, but I think they're building up a maturity. And I wouldn't, like, if they found a way to just stumble into this game, if just all hell broke loose in the Big Ten, I'd feel really good about them post-Indiana, looking like they've learned some things. And I'm excited about them in the postseason, just between the composure of Dante Moore, running the ball well, defense looking improved. More excited for them as far as the postseason, but long story short, Indiana, Ohio State, it's hard to really close your eyes and picture anything else going on in the conference. But Michigan could keep things frisky, could get themselves in the playoff. How far do they jump is the big question for me the next couple weeks. And how far does anyone jump with the CFP committee looking a little different than it did last year?
We said it on the reaction show on Sunday morning when Oregon beat Iowa. Oregon beat Iowa at Iowa's game.
Yeah.
And so to progress the way they've progressed since the Indiana loss, and it feels like they just are going to continue to find ways to win, especially when they get those weapons back healthy and Sadiq and Decorian Moore. Can you imagine, Kate, that we're sitting here the Sunday after conference title weekend, and we're talking about Dan Lanning being in the Big Ten 2 years and having 2 Big Ten titles to
That'd
his
be
name?
insane.
Can you imagine? I mean, just the way that would make other coaches in the Big Ten look. Like, oh, this is hard? Shoot, I just walked in here the first 2 years and won 2 conference titles, man. I should have been moved to the Big Ten here for Oregon. I think Michigan, to your point, I think it's a great question to ask. Ohio State, Michigan, last week of the regular season. If Michigan wins that game, I cannot imagine a world where the committee says, 10-2 Michigan, sorry. Now you gotta wait on the outside looking in here, folks. You can't. Even if they don't win the Big Ten championship, if they end up fighting their way in and the USC tiebreaker breaks their way, I still think Michigan at 10-2 gets in, man. I think that win over that team, just the committee that seems to value the eye test, I don't know how that game would look, but I have to imagine it would look pretty good for the folks in maize and blue. Michigan, to me, is the one that is at the front of the 10-2 line outside of Notre Dame, should they finish 10-2 in that respect.
Yeah, I can already see, like, depending on how the rest of the season plays out, the 10-2 debate is going to just be nuts, because then it's like, all right, there's a scenario where we have 10-2 Notre Dame, 10-2 Texas, 10-2 Oklahoma, 10-2 Michigan, Vanderbilt still frisky. Like, there is just so much. I can already see the 10-2 wars are going to be starting in our comment section and beyond for these last couple playoff spots, and we'll see how it goes. But just last thing on a Oregon post-Indiana game, I feel like they've really made a point to run the ball. 3 games post-Indiana, they rushed for 415 yards, 203 yards, and 261 yards against Iowa last week. This is a team that is just seamlessly transitioning into the Big Ten. They're running the ball better than Indiana now, average yards per game on the ground. Like, if we're talking about last year, things turned around for Ohio State post-Michigan game. Oregon may have already had their Michigan game. We won't see it till the postseason if it really kicks in and they have their postseason demons to fight from last year sitting at home and then going out there embarrassing themselves against Ohio State. So we'll see, man. I think there's something to this adversity heading into the postseason, and Ohio State's going to get their fair share at the game fighting those allegations after losing that game so many times in a row. But Indiana, Ohio State, man, it doesn't get much better. That's probably what it'll be. And would curious to see what the Hoosier faithful looks like in a One Lucas Oil Stadium for that one.
I have one of my best friends in the world went to Indiana. I was talking to him on the phone a week or 2 ago, and he's like, dude, I already bought tickets.
You have to.
He's like, dude, if we make the Big Ten title game and it's in Indianapolis,
you're there.
Those things are going to skyrocket, 1, and 2, I want to be there. Like, I'm going if I'm a Hoosier fan. So I'm with you. Pseudo home game. Last thing on Oregon, I feel like they kind of got hazed a little bit in the Big Ten world. Like, you kind of got initiated. Hey, now you played a game where it's 2-0 in a torrential downpour against Iowa. Now you're a Big Ten team. I know you won the conference last year, but now you win a game scoring less than 20 against Iowa. You're a Big Ten team.
Baptized in the trenches, man.
In the trenches,
It's the only way to do it in the Big Ten.
Has to be, man. I'm with you, though. I think Ohio State, Indiana is likely the matchup we see there in Big Ten country. The Big 12, not as wild as last year, Cato. 3 teams I'm tracking most closely: Texas Tech, BYU, Cincinnati. BYU still plays TCU at Cincy and UCF. That game against Cincinnati could be for a Big a Big 12 title spot.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean that's one that I think Texas Tech, with what they showed against BYU, should feel pretty good about their aspirations to be in that conference title game. But BYU at Cincy, that might be the one that decides who ends up playing Texas Tech.
Yeah, it's looking like it for sure. I think that's going to be an awesome game, kind of the next man up in the conference behind Texas Tech. But it is the Big 12. Last year, it wasn't this cut and dry, obviously, and there was a bunch of chaos. So it's just going to be about, can these teams stay clean, stay focused, and take care of their business? I think West Virginia's just an interesting team in here that could mix some stuff up with them playing Texas Tech at the end of the year. I've heard some people already say they kind of like the way West Virginia matches up against a Texas Tech compared to some other teams. So it'd be interesting to see if they can keep it interesting. But yeah, this one's all about Cincinnati and BYU kind of looking across at each other and both trying to get a shot to play Texas Tech again in that conference title game. Would be curious what the rankings do with this BYU loss, because this is, I mean, yeah, it's weird at the top. Hard to picture two Big 12 teams at the top of this thing still after this weekend. But curious if they could maybe sneak one in with them having some strong finishes to the season, that being a Cincinnati and a BYU.
Cato, not to put you on the spot, where does it say that Texas Tech West Virginia game is at? Is it in Morgantown or is it in Lubbock? Do you have that pulled up or know what?
It's in Morgantown, man.
In Morgantown, okay.
Last game of the season, shenanigans.
See, okay.
Could get weird.
We'll see.
The Big 12, I'm telling you, the argument and just the conversation all year has kind of been, is Texas Tech better than the Big 12 is weird. The Big 12, we loved it preseason, talking about it, trying to figure out who was going to be good. Any given week, you just never know what's going to happen in this league, especially at the end of the season when teams are trying to make it to the conference title game. But also Texas Tech is really good. So it's can they overcome just the shenanigans that we've seen from this conference in the month of November, specifically last season? So, but they definitely looked the part this weekend. Can they? Joey McGuire, you see some of his pregame stuff getting the boys hype. I think their defense is probably the most consistent unit we've seen in the conference the last couple of years, and I think that alone can help them. But their quarterback has a fracture in the leg, man. Hearing that on the broadcast, it was wait, what?
Just casually slid it in there.
They're yeah, he has a plate just keeping his fracture dialed in and secure. And I'm that, I don't love that. So, I mean, you'd like to think UCF, West Virginia, they heard that too. They're going to try to concoct some game plan to slow down this offense. Getting around the defense is a lot taller of a task with just the animals they have on that side of the ball, specifically in the front seven. But yeah, man, it's Texas Tech versus the Big 12 as far as, are you really good? We think so. Are you better, though, than how weird this conference gets? We'll see. But yeah, BYU and Cincinnati looking across at each other, trying to play for a spot in that title game, it looks like.
Every family has issues. Can you rise above your family issues, your Big 12 baggage, if you will, and be different and better because of that baggage if you're Texas Tech? How about Joey McGee, though, brother? You said violent action.
Oh, yeah.
I was okay, I'm ready. I'm at home right now. It's 11 a.m. where I'm at. I'm ready to go run through a wall for Joey McGee.
Between that and the uniforms, it was electric. I was turned.
I see. So Big 12. So I don't want to be the BYU hater guy again, but you got to go to Cincy, dude. You got to go to Cincy.
And you got to play Arizona first. I will put, Texas Tech, take care of your business. You're a really good team. Go and do your thing. But Cincinnati hosting Arizona and then BYU hosting TCU before that game. Can you not look ahead to the game that we're all looking ahead to already to see if you can get a rematch at BYU? Can you take care of your business in those games? TCU was looking like they figured something out. Next thing you know, my Iowa Cyclones, after just losing game after game after game, beat TCU. So this conference, I think, still has a little bit of something to it, some magic, some unpredictability to it. And I think those are the two spots that it could get weird if BYU and Cincy don't keep their eye on the ball. And next thing you know, they're looking ahead to their potential play-in game a little too early, and it gets a little weird. So that's what I'm watching too, for sure. And the next thing you know, if that happens, if BYU or Cincinnati take a loss this week, and all of a sudden you see on the screen, we're inviting a bunch of 2-loss teams to the party, and we have to do the algorithm and the geometry and do all of the math it takes to figure out who's going to be playing Texas Tech. Thankfully, it would be hopefully just who's going to play Texas Tech and not what two teams are going to be in there, because that was crazy last year.
Spare us that, I guess.
But, man, if BYU or Cincinnati takes their eye off the ball this weekend, this conference gets a lot more interesting.
Yeah, Utah with 2 conference losses is an absolute curveball. And they don't have that tiebreaker with BYU, but they have the tiebreaker with Cincinnati. So Utah likely outside looking in. Houston there with 2 losses. I think you see Cincy and Texas Tech in the conference title game, Cato.
Yeah. You'd like to think, man. I don't know. I think Bear Bachmeier in that matchup this weekend, he looked like a freshman. Like there's nothing to it. You've been waiting for it kind of all year, and that's a Texas Tech defense that would make some seniors look like freshmen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's concerning. Curious, since Cincinnati can take some stuff out of that playbook and make it work, because you'd like to think they would do that. I would probably lean Cincinnati too, just the Sorsby of it all at home. And again, like I said, taking some pages out of the Texas Tech playbook, but wouldn't it be the most Big 12 thing ever where all of a sudden, like, both of these teams lose and then Arizona State has the tiebreaker because they beat Texas Tech and, like, they're
with
back
Jeff
in
Sims.
it with Jeff Sims? Yeah. The ceiling and floor of what this could be is still – that's probably that's the ceiling of how crazy it could get if, like, somehow Kenny Dillingham backdoored his way into this thing. And then the normal scenario is BYU, Cincinnati, handle your business this weekend, play in a playing game, and then we're good to go. And then hopefully the next week, again, you, like, avoid a one more game. You have a game after that. Keep things clean. But it's the Big 12, man. We can't rule out it being a crazy league that can get even crazier in November.
Big 12 is going to Big 12, man. Big 12 is going to freaking Big 12. Well, you know who's Big 12ing already right now is the ACC. So we'll finish up with this. Cato, on my notes, I just have ACC - I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Georgia Tech and Pitt both control their own destiny. They're going to play each other. 5 teams by my count with 1 conference loss.
Yep.
GT and Pitt, UVA, SMU, Duke.
That's it.
Here we go. Here we freaking go, dude. It is. And also, by the way, Miami and Louisville just hanging out on the corner with 2 losses themselves.
Just begging for someone to lose again.
Just chilling.
Begging for everyone to lose again, honestly.
This is going to be awesome. Virginia and Duke will play each other. I already mentioned Pitt will play Georgia Tech. Those are your 2, like, I guess, making sense starter packs.
Yeah.
When you get those 2 games out of the way, you kind of get a more clear picture at it. But the picture likely won't be clear at all until we get to, like, conference title weekend as to who's going to play in that game. So, Cato, this is how I think about it because I'm looking at all the potential math that we'd have to do here, and I'm like, wasn't great at math to start. This will play itself out. I'll get a Ross Dellinger tweet that'll hit my timeline, and it'll tell me here's what has to happen for these teams to play in the conference title weekend. I'm looking at who I trust the most right now. And doing some more work on Pitt this week, dude, Heinzel's a dog. Heinzel's a dog. OC Cade Bell at Pitt is phenomenal. Pitt's a little bit risky for the biscuit on defense, pretty aggressive. But, dude, they haven't lost with Heinzel playing quarterback right now.
Nope.
So I think I trust Pitt the most right now to make it to the conference title game. Do you have anything you want to add in on the ACC? I mean, I know you have things to say, but, like, do you have any, like, big picture thoughts on the ACC before getting into the math we'll have to do here?
Yeah, I love the Pitt take, and I think Pitt's in a really good spot because they play in a non-conference heavy bar game this weekend against Notre Dame. So, like, whatever happens in that game, win, lose, or draw for them, they will get a nice, good rep before having to play Georgia Tech, who is coming off of their first loss of the season, playing a sleepy Boston College team at Boston College on the ACC network. Like, not a glamorous game, not a glamorous spot for them. I think they'll have to dig more within to get some momentum rolling versus a Pitt team who, hey, man, like, we're going to play probably the best team we've seen this year, and then we can take what we learned from that game, how we feel like we match up with them, and go play Georgia Tech for kind of a spot in the conference title game. Like, it's that open. I would love BetMGM. I haven't checked that. They might already have this, but obviously you always have your conference title odds, who you think is going to win the conference. I think it's so interesting to just – if we could just bet who plays in this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I would love to combine, like, Georgia Tech, Virginia playing in it, maybe a Duke, Virginia. Like, there's so many scenarios that could still exist right now. Just trying to bet who would play in this game is crazier, much less than once you get there. Once we figure out who it is, you know, if Pitt gets there, if Georgia Tech gets there, if Virginia gets there, we have a body of work to go off of, despite how crazy this league has been and how close the wins have been and how Wake Forest and North Carolina State are all of a sudden, like, dictating who's playing in these games because they're beating teams left and right. Like, it is such a strange league. I think it's taken the mantle. Big 12 passed the torch to them this year and said, hey, like, we have a Texas Tech team we think is going to be a front runner. let's have y'all be the unpredictable league that we're all doing crazy math for in November to figure out who's going to play in this conference title game. But yeah, man, I love the Pitt take. I still think Brent Key in Georgia Tech, man, it's hard not to trust him. I think if any coach can just get punched in the mouth like that, learn from it and come out better, it's Brent Key. So I would still lean towards them. But man, like Virginia loses to Chandler Morris. I think that makes things a lot more interesting. SMU, I like SMU. I felt really good about them going into that Miami game. And they play Louisville and they play Cal. So they're not playing any teams that are in the race necessarily with that one loss in the column. But if things bounce their way and they found a way back into that game, big game SMU. We remember how that game went last year. It's a playoff team last year. Kevin Jennings can still obviously make plays. They're a very boom or bust team. They're either big play or nothing. But if SMU found a way back in this game, it'd be hard not to feel good about them just given their pedigree and Rhett Lashley kind of being underrated now at this point, and Kevin Jennings as well.
It's going to be madness, dude. It's going to be absolute madness. I like the Brent Key angle, though, dude. If you got one coach to bet on, team with a strong jaw in Georgia Tech's probably not a bad way to go about it, but very curious to see what the rankings say tonight in regards to where they put a Georgia Tech and a Pitt, because I have to think they'll probably both move up with the chaos we've gotten. But it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. These conference title races are heating up in a big way, and excited for the ACC to hopefully make some more sense here in the next couple of weeks, Cato.
Definitely, man. Last thing I'll say is I do not trust Duke. You know me this year. We have our board where we make our picks. Anytime Duke is on there, I don't trust them. I've seen them beat themselves too many times. And what do they do this weekend? They lose to UConn, and they're still in this hunt. Like, they still play Virginia coming up. They're still in the hunt. But that's the only team I don't trust. And this is truly the Big 12 of this season. If next thing you know, we see Duke end up like in the conference title game in Charlotte. It's not ruling out any madness, but I'm ruling out Duke just because I've seen themselves beat themselves too many times this year.
You know what that reminded me of? You know whose fault this whole thing is? Whose fault that we're having this conversation is?
Tell me.
Dabo Swinney and Clemson, dude.
Yeah,
this is supposed to be the cut and dry, hey, can the ACC get two teams in if Clemson ends up being a team that can go undefeated? Like, that was the take. It was Clemson's going to run the freaking table. And right now, looking at this graphic of the ACC conference standings 1 through 8, Clemson not on there.
MIA.
Clemson's fault, man.
Missing in action. They had the worst odds of any conference title champion heading into the year.
Oh my
ACC,
gosh,
Big Ten, SEC, the worst odds you were getting.
It
was
might have been
picking
minus
Clemson.
money.
Yeah, it got there eventually. A couple weeks before the season, BetMGM was like, "Yeah, we're minus. Like, we can't give plus money on Clemson. Look at this team. They have 11 first-team all-conference guys preseason. Nope.
Third-year starting quarterback. A coach with not one but 2 national titles.
Unbelievable. But
So if you want to blame someone, blame Clemson.
blame Clemson, man. It was fun though. I'm glad we got to look through these conference title races.
Yeah, Cato, great stuff as always, man. Breaking it down, making sense of all this. Hey, if you have any intel on who's winning the ACC or how that whole thing is going to shake out, go ahead and let us know in the comment section. But, man, we appreciate making this show what it is. We say it every week, but this is an awesome time of the year in the world of college football. Conference title races heating up, the carousel beginning to turn a little bit more aggressively, pseudo-playoff games, all that and more in the world of college football. And all that and more on this show is what we're talking about, so we appreciate y'all, again, being subscribed. If you haven't already, go ahead and do that. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Cato on the ones and the twos and the mic. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.